Mike Tyson's life reads like an impossible Hollywood script, dominating the world of boxing, becoming a pop culture phenomenon, and facing tremendous personal and public tragedy. At 59, Tyson is no longer the unstoppable force that once tore through the boxing world. Today, his legacy is defined not just by his victories, but by the hidden wounds and the turmoil he has endured. Behind the chaos and triumphs was a man shaped by fear, loss, addiction, and eventually, redemption. Tyson's story reveals that the true power of his journey didn't come from his fists, but from the resilience he found within himself to confront the pain he kept hidden for decades. A childhood defined by struggle and fear. Before Tyson was a legend, he was a broken kid from Brownsville, New York. The world remembers Tyson for his formidable knockout power. But what fueled that power was a lifetime of trauma. Growing up in a neighborhood where survival was not just a skill, but a necessity, Tyson was exposed to violence, neglect, and profound fear. He was robbed, beaten, and abandoned by his family before he even fully understood what family meant. Boxing wasn't a sport to him, it was his escape. Tyson fought not for glory, but for survival, and it was this raw desperation that would shape his career and his personal life for years to come. Cus D'Amato, the father Tyson never had while. Tyson's upbringing was marked by hardship. There was one person who gave him the guidance he desperately needed, Cus D'Amato. D'Amato wasn't just a boxing trainer, he became a father figure to Tyson, showing him that he was worth believing in. Under Cus's mentorship, Tyson transformed from an angry, disillusioned child into a disciplined, focused athlete. Cus taught him more than how to throw a punch. He taught him how to trust again. With Cus by his side, Tyson began to rise from the brokenness of his past and toward the promise of greatness. But just as Tyson began to feel safe, fate cruelly took away the one person who made him believe in himself. The devastating loss of Cus D'Amato. The death of Cus D'Amato in 1985 shattered Tyson. It wasn't just a mentor he lost, it was the stability, the emotional foundation, and the guidance he so desperately needed. For Tyson, Cus represented the only father he had ever known, and his death sent Tyson spiraling. Without Cus's guidance, Tyson was left vulnerable at the very moment he needed someone the most. His circle of people changed, and with it came a series of manipulations and betrayals that would follow him for years. While Tyson was becoming a global boxing sensation, his personal world was slowly falling apart, and the cracks in his life began to show. The rise of a champion. Tyson becomes the youngest heavyweight champion. At just 20 years old, Tyson became the youngest heavyweight champion in history when he defeated Trevor Berbick in 1986. To the world, Tyson seemed invincible, a boxing machine destined for greatness. He was a phenomenon. Fans adored him, promoters saw him as a goldmine, and reporters couldn't get enough of his dominance in the ring. But the world didn't see the internal battles Tyson was fighting. Fame, money, and success couldn't erase the emotional void left by his tumultuous childhood and the death of his mentor. As Tyson began to claim titles, his personal life descended into chaos, and the boxing legend was already in the fight of his life against his own demons. Inside prison, a moment of reflection. Prison was a harsh reality check for Tyson, forcing him to confront his deepest fears and demons. While incarcerated, Tyson trained obsessively, read extensively, and began reflecting on the choices that had led him to this point. It was the first time he had ever been forced to slow down and truly examine the decisions he'd made and the life he had lived. Tyson maintained his innocence, but the jury had convicted him, and the world had turned its back on him. Inside the prison walls, Tyson was left with nothing but time to wrestle with the trauma that had plagued him for years. It was a solitary existence, but in those quiet moments, Tyson began to realize that his greatest battle was not in the ring, it was with himself. The return to the ring. The bite heard around the world. When Tyson was released from prison in 1995, the world was eager to see if he could reclaim his former glory. But the Tyson who returned to the ring was not the same man who had once ruled the sport. In 1997, Tyson's comeback fight against Evander Holyfield became infamous for all the wrong reasons. Frustrated and emotionally overwhelmed, Tyson bit Holyfield's ear during the match, an act that shocked the world. Tyson was fined, suspended, and universally condemned. This was the moment when Tyson's fall from grace became permanent. The bite heard around the world wasn't just a physical act, it symbolized everything Tyson had been running from: the trauma, the pain, and the rage that had been building inside him for years. Bankruptcy and addiction, the dark years after the ring. By the early 2000s, Tyson's life had become a slow-motion collapse. Despite earning more than $300 million throughout his career, he found himself financially bankrupt. His reckless spending, poor decisions, and betrayal by those closest to him drained his wealth. Tyson's addiction to drugs and alcohol grew as he tried to numb the pain of his past. He struggled with guilt, exhaustion, and feelings of emptiness. The man who had once terrified opponents with his strength and power was now trapped in a cycle of self-destruction. And then, in 2009, tragedy struck in the cruelest way imaginable. Tyson's 4-year-old daughter, Exodus, died in a freak accident at home. The loss was devastating, and Tyson was left shattered. He had suffered many losses in his life, but this was a pain unlike anything he had ever experienced. The path to redemption, healing, and therapy. In the aftermath of Exodus's death, Tyson found himself at his lowest point. But it was also the turning point. Grieving deeply, Tyson realized that he needed to make a change. He entered therapy, sought recovery, and began working on rebuilding himself from the inside out. He cut ties with toxic influences and focused on healing. For the first time, Tyson began to confront his past, facing the trauma and pain that had driven his destructive behaviors. It wasn't an easy journey, but slowly, he started to rebuild his life. Not as the monster the world had once seen, but as a man trying to survive. Tyson's transformation was gradual, but it was real. Tyson's public comeback, a return to the spotlight. In 2020, Tyson made a bold decision to return to the ring at the age of 54. The announcement shocked fans, and videos of his intense training sessions went viral. Tyson looked sharp, fast, strong, and determined, but those closest to him feared for his health. At his age, with decades of injuries, Tyson's body was no longer the machine it once was. His joints were stiff, his back ached, and his hands were numb from years of damage. Yet Tyson insisted on fighting, driven by the need to prove something to himself. It wasn't about winning, it was about reclaiming his identity. But the question lingered. Was Tyson fighting opponents, or was he fighting time itself? The legacy of Mike Tyson, a survivor, not a monster. As Tyson trained for his comeback, the world saw something new. A man who had finally started to heal. He was no longer the villain, the monster, or the troubled legend. He was a survivor, a man who had been through hell and was still standing. Tyson began to open up about his struggles, his trauma, and his journey toward healing. In his one-man show, Undisputed Truth, he allowed audiences to see the person behind the myth, flawed, vulnerable, and human. For the first time in decades, Tyson wasn't a headline or a headline villain. He was a man finally telling the truth. And despite the challenges, he was slowly and painfully earning his redemption.